Hello, my name is Selena and I'm 20 years old. I grew up in a pretty loving and close family, but my mom and I had the closest relationship. But she got sick with cancer when I was 12, and by the time I was 14, she was gone. She left me all her clothes, her family heirloom jewelry, and a college fund. But none of that compared to her actually being there with me. I was devastated, and so was my dad, Hank. Mom's death affected my relationship with Dad a lot. We barely spoke to each other, and he just let me do my own thing without ever questioning me. I miss my mom a lot, but I miss my dad even more. Somehow, I had managed to lose both parents at once. And then, about a year and a half after Mom died, Dad told me that he was seeing someone. Of course, I did think it was too soon, but he seemed happy and he was talking to me, and that made me feel good, so I was supportive of him. I met his girlfriend, at the time, Debbie, a month after he told me. They got married about 6 months after that. Debbie was an okay person. I was happy for my dad, but I didn't really care much for her. I was old enough to be aware of what was happening, and I knew that no one would ever replace my mom. I made it explicitly clear to my dad that I would never consider her my mother. He agreed with me, but he did ask me to treat Debbie with respect because she was still his wife. I accepted his wish, and I hoped he had talked to her about my wishes. But he either didn't, or she chose to not listen to what he had said, because as soon as they got married, she began to impose her ideas and values on me. I tried my hardest to fight back, but she always went to my dad about it. He was a man who only wanted peace, so he would stay out of it and ask us to solve it ourselves. I remember one of the many things she tried to get me to do was stop reading my favorite book series because she thought it was too childish. I'm going to nicely ask you for the last time to stop reading that stupid series. But why? There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. You're 17 years old, for crying out loud. No one will think it's normal for a 17-year-old to be reading some books about fairies and whatnot. Who cares about what others think? I'm happy with it. I'm not going to stop because you're embarrassed by it. That is no way to talk to your mother, Selena. I'm once again going to tell you that you are not my mother, Debbie. Oh, really? Then what am I? Some strange lady living in your house? At this point, it's better if I saw you that way. How dare you? Look, I only respect you as my dad's wife. Take it or leave it. You can't even think that I'd ever replace my mother. You will call me Mom, and I will make sure of it. But before that, I'm confiscating your books. You can't do that. I'll tell Dad about it. Let's see who he'll listen to, wife or his daughter. With that, she took away all my books and walked away with a smirk on her face. I tried to talk to my dad about it, but he told me he was too tired from work to deal with Debbie and my stuff. He asked me to sort it out with her myself. I remember feeling so upset and angry with him at times. I guess it was around that time that I realized just how much my dad prioritized me. He and his perfect job, perfect house, perfect wife, his life was set. Everything else that happened was none of his concern, even when it included me. He had never once taken my side on anything. He never even tried to reason with Debbie about anything, so I made the decision to just lay low after that. I realized that constantly rebelling and saying something would not help me in any way. I decided that I would move out as soon as I turned 18, because that was going to be my best course of action. Dad wouldn't be bothered by it, and Debbie, well, who cared about what she thought? So for the next year, I didn't say much at all. I didn't engage Debbie whenever she tried to start a fight, or even when she tried to force me to call her mom. She would invite her friends over to show off her luxurious lifestyle and her perfect family. In front of them, she would force me to call her mom, which I never did. Of course, that resulted in screaming matches afterward, but I couldn't care. Dad also did not care enough to ask me to call her mom, or maybe that was him just respecting the one boundary I had asked him to respect. Anyway, my not engaging Debbie only made her even angrier with me. I swear I could feel the hate rolling off of her in waves. As soon as I turned 18, I moved out. My mom had left me a sizable amount of money that would more than comfortably get me through college. I got into a college that was 2 states away and on scholarship too. After I moved out, I never looked back, although I did move out rather suddenly. So Dad and Debbie were thrown off guard. After I had reached my new place, Debbie called me furious. "How dare you just move out like that?" "Well, I'm 18, so? Do you not know how upset we are?" "Debbie, you've always been the one to tell me to behave like other kids my age. You know what they're doing right now, moving out. You should be grateful that I moved out without you having to say anything." "Don't try to act smart. Your dad's all sad and worried now, and it's all because of you. If Dad's so sad and worried, he can call me himself. I don't see why you have to call." "Because I am your mother. I have a right to know why my daughter moved out so suddenly without so much as a word." "First of all, you are not my mother, and I am not your daughter. Secondly, I moved because of you. You don't listen to me, and you keep trying to control everything I do. I don't want to have anything to do with you." You really think I'm trying to control you?" "I don't think so. I know. Even now, you're trying to control my decisions." "I am not. I'm only trying to do what's best for you." "Well, what's best for me is to move out, so goodbye, Debbie." It felt great to be out of Debbie's reach. Finally, I was going to be able to wear whatever I wanted and eat what I wanted without hearing anyone screeching in my ear about how that wasn't good. I was able to go wherever I wanted without needing to ask for permission days in advance. I was free. And boy, did I use my freedom. I went out and did all the things I was stopped from doing. And I'm talking about a lot of the mundane things like going bowling. Yes, bowling. I wasn't allowed to go because it was too provocative. Keep in mind, I only ever went bowling with my female friends and my dad, so I don't even want to know what she was implying. I barely kept in contact with Debbie or Dad because I didn't see the point of doing it. If they truly cared about me, they would have reached out to me themselves. Before I knew it, 2 years had passed by in college. I was a stellar student and I had made a name for myself around campus. By that time, I only spoke to Dad every month and that was it. He would tell me about how Debbie had almost forgotten about me, but whenever he did bring me up, she would turn all sour and change the topic, so not a lot had changed. Over time, Dad began initiating the calls too. I guess we just needed some distance to bring us closer. That or Debbie was genuinely driving him crazy with her antics and he needed someone else to talk to. So it wasn't surprising when Dad called me one day out of the blue. "Hey, sweetie, how's everything going?" "Everything's going great. Got my midterms coming up soon, so prepping like crazy for it." "That's my girl." "What about you? Everything all right?" "Oh, yeah, everything's fine. Debbie's, well, Debbie, although she has been in a sour mood this week." "What happened this time?" "Well, your uncle, Jerry, called." "Oh, my God, I haven't heard from him in years." "Yeah, I was very surprised too. We caught up for a bit and he told me that he was celebrating his 50th birthday next month and he wanted us to be there." "Of course, I'll be there. I miss Uncle Jerry. It'll be nice to catch up with him." "I knew you'd want to go, so I figured you could stay with us." I don't know about that." "Selena, please, I miss you and I just want to spend some proper time with you." "I miss you too, Dad. But when I was there, you never once stood up for me. I don't want that to happen again." "I promise I'll be there this time. Last time I was just not in a good mental space. I guess therapy has been helping me a lot." "You've been going to therapy?" "Yeah, because I realized I was being a crappy father and I wanted that to change." "All right, I'll stay with you. But if Debbie pulls anything on me, I will not hesitate to retaliate." "I'll support you all along. Don't worry." It felt kind of nice to know that my dad would have my back. Obviously, I was not stupid enough to fully believe it, but I did think that there was some hope considering that he had seemed vastly different recently and had been making an effort. Plus, that was the first time that he ever told me that he would be on my side, as compared to before when he would tell me to figure things out myself. I was actually kind of excited to go back home. Of course, I was not at all happy about having to be around Debbie, but I was excited to meet Uncle Jerry. Uncle Jerry is my mom's older brother. He was the one who raised my mom after her parents died, and so he always had a special place in her heart. When I was born, he showered me with a lot of love and gifts. But he eventually got busy with joining the police academy and starting a family, not to mention Mom's death took a big toll on him. He had no contact with everyone for a long while. The only way we knew he was even alive was because his wife would keep us updated. And then my dad got remarried and Debbie became part of our lives. She demanded that we cut off ties with everyone from my mom's side. At that time, we were barely speaking to any of them, so it wasn't hard to get that done. I knew that Debbie was definitely not going to be happy about Dad being in contact with my mom's side of the family, and she was probably even more unhappy that we were visiting them. But I didn't care. I was just happy that my dad finally grew enough of a spine to go against what Debbie wanted. I finished my midterms and made my way back home. I made sure to carry one of my mom's dresses and her jewelry because I felt like it would be an appropriate thing to wear at her brother's birthday. It would have been like she was there with us. Dad picked me up from the airport and told me that Debbie was out for the day, so we had the day to ourselves. I was really happy about that. Dad and I spent the day out in the evening and we made our way over to Uncle Jerry's place. We all cried a little because of how long it had been since we saw each other. Thankfully, Debbie wasn't there. I bet she didn't like being reminded that my dad had loved someone before her. The dinner celebration was a blast. I got to learn a lot about my mom and her family at that time. I learned that Uncle Jerry got a promotion to sergeant of his precinct, which I was very proud of. I told them all about my college life and we had a good laugh. By the time Dad and I got back, it was well past midnight and Debbie was waiting for us. She seemed very unhappy. "Why were you guys out for so long?" "Relax, Deb. We were with family that we hadn't met in years. I told you that we'd be late." "Oh, so they're your family now? What happened to my family then?" "I think I'm capable of having more than one family." "I don't understand why you're being so mean to me right now, but I'm sure that it all has to do with this one. Isn't it, Selena?" "Well, hello to you too, Debbie." "Don't be sarcastic with your mother." "You are not my mother. Stop it. I don't care whose house you go to and who you consider your family, but at the end of the day, I am your mom and you have to listen to me." "I absolutely do not. If you really were my mom, you would have checked in on me while I was at college." "I'm sorry, but I had other things going on. My life can't revolve around you." You know who would never actually say that? My mom. All the more reason that you could never be my mother. I told your father to pull you out of college because look at how disrespectful you've gotten. Neither you nor Dad would have been able to do crap to me. My mom paid for my college. You guys should be grateful that I even kept in contact with you. I was glad to have you out of the house. I don't need a spoiled brat like you ruining my home. Debbie, that's enough. I'll speak to you in our room. Why don't we all just call it a night and calmly discuss things in the morning? I'm so sorry about this, Sal. Good night. I was grateful my dad stepped in because, Lord knows, I was ready to punch Debbie. It was one thing to constantly insist that she was my mother, but to do it the same day that I had just come back from visiting Mom's family, that was a different kind of cruel. I heard Dad and Debbie arguing in their room, and I was happy to see my dad actually stand up for me. When I went into my room, I heard the door of my dad's room slam shut, and then the main door open and shut too, so I figured one of them must have walked out. I hoped it was Debbie, but I didn't go out to check. I removed my clothes and jewelry and carefully packed them all away. I then hopped into the shower and got ready for bed. I don't exactly remember if what I heard was real, but I think I did hear something in my bedroom while I was inside the bathroom. When I walked back out, I immediately felt like something was off. I had this intense feeling of dread. I quickly scanned my room and noticed that my suitcase was not zipped, which was not what it was like when I hopped into the shower. Someone had been in my room. I quickly looked around my suitcase and found all of my mom's jewelry missing. I felt panic rising through my chest. These pieces were one of a few things I had left of Mom's. I calmed myself down and walked to Dad and Debbie's room. Debbie answered the door. "What do you want?" "Where's Dad?" "He left a while ago, after we had a fight, thanks to you." "So you've been at home all this while?" "Yes." "Does that mean you were the one who entered my room?" "Entered your room? I definitely didn't do that. I mean, what do you even have in there for me to walk in?" "My mom's jewelry. You've been consistently trying to erase her from Dad and my life. And we just had a fight about it." "So? That doesn't mean anything?" "Why are you sweating so much? Are you nervous?" "Ha! No, I was just out trying to find your father." "I just thought you said that you were at home all this time." "Stop hounding me! Leave me alone!" I knew at that moment that Debbie had been the one to steal from me. Her audacity was truly astounding. It made me realize just what extent she would go to just get what she wanted. I was furious at her, but I was also tired. I knew that constantly asking her about it would lead to nowhere, so I called my dad and informed him of what happened. He was at the park, but he rushed back home. He told me not to worry about a thing and that we would get it back, although I didn't want him fighting with her again. I asked him if I could handle things in my own way, and he gave his permission. He also told me that he had something to do the next morning, so he wouldn't be there for breakfast. It was about 3 a.m. by the time I fell asleep, and I was exhausted from all the traveling and the roller coaster of emotions. The next morning when I woke up, Debbie avoided me like the plague. And of course she did. She knew that she had stolen from me, and she was wary of what I was going to do. As soon as I was done with breakfast, I decided to call Uncle Jerry. "Hey, Uncle Jerry, I need to talk to you about something." "Hey, darling, what's up? Is everything okay?" "Not really." "Yeah, your dad was telling me that Debbie had started a fight yesterday after you guys got back." "Oh, yeah, that happened, and she did something else as well. She stole my jewelry. Or Mom's jewelry, to be more specific." "What? Why?" "Well, she's always hated that I never considered her to be my mother, and she kept trying to force me to call her Mom. I guess she thought that taking away the things that my mom left to me was going to force me to forget Mom." "That's beyond messed up. What is wrong with her? What has your dad done?" "Everything happened so late last night, so we just went to sleep. He's been out all morning, but he told me I could do whatever I wanted to." "Okay, and what is that?" "I want to report her for theft." "That's smart. But I'm going to need you to come down to the station to make the report and answer a bunch of questions." "Will you be able to take the lead on the case and put Debbie in her place?" "Oh, believe me, I will." With that, I hung up the phone and made my way to the police station. I greeted Uncle Jerry, and we immediately got started on the report. They asked me to describe everything that was stolen, and I even gave them a copy of my mother's will, which stated her leaving me those pieces. I told them about how I knew that she had been the one to steal it, and Uncle Jerry testified for my dad's absence because it turned out that they had met in the park the previous night. Uncle Jerry asked me to go back home, and within an hour, the police were standing at our door. Debbie happened to be the one to open the door, and I got to watch her face grow pale as she realized what was happening. The police asked her a couple of questions about her whereabouts the previous night and told her about the report that was made against her. They had a search warrant and walked into her room, where they found all my jewelry. Debbie looked at me with tears in her eyes. I almost felt sorry for her, but then I took one look at Uncle Jerry and I was reminded of my mom. That was enough for me to snap out of it. In the middle of everything that was happening, my dad walked in. Debbie ran to him and asked him to help her out, and he coldly shrugged her off and handed her some papers. They were divorce papers. Debbie broke down in sobs as she approached me. "Selena, please, I'm so sorry." "Sorry for what?" "For pushing you too hard and taking your jewelry." "You didn't take anything from me. You stole it." "Yeah, whatever you want to call it. I'm sorry." "Are you really sorry or only doing it to make a show of it?" "I am. I'm sorry. I was not thinking straight and I acted on impulse. I just want to go back to having my lovely family. Please, just forgive me, and I'm sure your dad will too." "I'm not responsible for what my dad does, but I'm sure as hell not forgiving you. You've made my life hell for years, and this is the smallest price that you can pay?" "Honestly, I don't know why I expected you to be kind. You've always been a selfish jerk. I'm so glad you aren't my actual daughter, and I don't regret taking your stupid, ugly jewelry." "That's enough, Debbie. Jerry, take her away, please." I finally breathed a sigh of relief. Debbie was going to be out of our lives for good. My dad told me that he had been planning on getting a divorce from her ever since he started therapy, but he held back because he didn't want to be alone. But seeing her reaction the previous night was enough to push him to do it. It's been about 2 months since all this happened, and my dad and I have been on a steady path of recovery in our relationship. As for Debbie, she got slapped with a fine of $700, which Uncle Jerry said was the highest they could go considering the value of the jewelry. I am finally starting to live freely again, and this time I have my family by my side. I couldn't be happier.